It's time for morning roundup. Got my cold brew out here, have a fire pit going in my chimenea. Chimenea. Sometimes I need to look up the pronunciations of words before I say them. And then I have little fires going over here to keep the mosquitoes away. So I'm going to talk to you about my founding scripture. It is my favorite scripture in the world and about an experience I had. So it's Ephesians 3:20. And I've had this as like my favorite founding scripture since I think 2010. And it's caused divine connections. It was a church that I went to down in Norman. That was their scripture. And I was like, everything just was. And then I met another uh, person that they were like, that was their founding thing for what they were doing. And I helped them. And it was just, it's always been like there at the core. So it's Ephesians 3:20. It says, now to him by, and I'm going to read Amplified Version. I love the Message, is my favorite one. But now to him who, by in consequence of the action of his power that is at work within us, is able to carry out his purpose and do superabundantly, far over and above all that we dare and ask or think, infinitely beyond our highest prayers, desires, thoughts, hopes, or dreams. And Ephesians 3:20 in Message just says he'll do above and beyond our wildest dreams and imaginations. It's a little bit shorter and more in our lingo, but this is, I could not find my Message Bible, so I thought, well, this really puts a lot more oomph in there. So this scripture had been my founding scripture, telling everybody, hey, God's going to do above and beyond your wildest dreams and imagination. Keep dreaming, keep doing it. You got this. You know, telling myself this and all these things, and was always going back to the scripture. And then I went to help do some prison ministry in, I think, Abilene. I'm not Abilene, Texas. Yeah, I think that's where it was. Okay. And it was a men's prison. And I went with a group, and they had been there many times, and I had never been. And it was very, very emotional moment for me. And I got there, and I just couldn't even stop crying when I got there. I was like, they were like, you can't do that, and I was like, I can't help it. And I couldn't explain all the emotions I was having. And so we're sitting there, and it's a church service there, and they're getting. Had to pause it. My dog was trying to sneak off. They're getting ready for the service for us as guests, and I had no part. I wasn't going to be doing anything. I was just there to support. And I call her Aunt Pat. Aunt Pat leans over to me and says, "You're going to speak." And I was like, "No, no, no, I'm not." And she said, "Yes, like the Lord wanted wants you to speak." And I was like, "Nope, because this is the main thing I had been teaching on." And I wasn't prepared, and it's the only thing I really had, just like that I could just, without taking time to study. And I was like, no, these, some of these people are in here for life. And so I'm talking back and forth, and I'm praying to God, and I'm like, what am I supposed to tell these men? They are hopeless. They're in here. They're stuck in here. They can't get out. They can't do anything. How are they supposed to have big dreams? A lot of them were in there for life. This was a hardcore prison. And they're feeling hopeless. And how do I explain, how do I do this? Because I'm used to helping people with their businesses and their ministries and things that they've got goals and dreams right then and there. And I just, all of a sudden, I just started shutting down. I was like, I don't know. And the Lord spoke very, like, just clear. It was like we were having a conversation, and he told me to look around. And I saw the man that was bringing us our waters. There was a man running the projector. There was an accident with a colostomy bag with somebody that was in there, and men jumped up, and like, this guy was embarrassed, and they were helping him, and they were making sure that he was taken care of because it was an older gentleman. And there were men putting out chairs, and he spoke to my heart, and he said, "You are more in prison in your own mind than the men sitting in this prison right now." And I just began to cry, and I was talking to the Lord. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You missed the whole passage before Ephesians 3:20. You've missed the whole purpose of Ephesians 3:20. You're focused on it, but you've missed the whole purpose for your life and for their life." Sorry, I get very emotional because this is a reminder to me too. And he said, go back and read the verses before that. And so Ephesians 3:17 says, may Christ through your faith actually dwell, settle down, abide, make his permanent home in your hearts. May you be rooted deep in the love and founded securely on love, that you may have the power and be strong to apprehend and grasp with all saints, God's devoted people, the experience of the love that is the breadth and the length and the height and the depth, that you may really come to know practically through experience for yourself the love of Christ, which far surpasses mere knowledge without experience, that you may be filled through all of your being unto all the fullness of God. May the richest measure of the divine presence and become a body wholly filled and flooded with God Himself. And I did get up and speak, and I told them how much God loved them, and He had a plan and a purpose, and it didn't matter where they were at. And then He reminded me of, Paul in prison and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There was many people that had been in actual physical prison, and the hope is still there, but because the hope is in His love, and that for my life, I could dream all I wanted. I could confess Ephesians 3:20, but until I grasped how much He loved me, I wasn't going to get there. And listen, I'm still on that journey because I've been through some things, and I've backed away and I've come forward and I've backed away and I've come towards God again and I've backed away. And He's reminding me again how much He loves me. And He wants to remind you how much He loves you, and He will do above and beyond your wildest dreams and imaginations. Thank you for joining me for Morning Roundup.